Shalom. I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you to this week's Focus Israel Report. In this week's report, we're going to be sharing with you regarding the current status of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, and it is as follows. As the April 29th deadline approaches to extend direct peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas threatened to dismantle the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority was created from the 1993 Oslo Accords signed between Israel and the Palestinians, whose aim was to create a Palestinian state through negotiations. The Palestinian Authority was given responsibility to negotiate with Israel. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said, "A new generation arrives and is asking, 'What have you done? I am now 79 years old. I cannot escape from passing off the baton,' said Abbas. The settlements endanger the peace process, and the new generation sees the two-state solution is becoming less and less likely, and that there is no escape from the one-state solution." Behind the scenes, the Palestinians have concocted a plan to gravely complicate matters for Israel, and that is a declaration that the Palestinians are an occupied government. Such a move would annul the 1993 Oslo Accords and revoke the status of the Palestinians as a sovereign authority, leaving Israel with full responsibility of the Palestinian population in the West Bank. According to Palestinian sources, Mahmoud Abbas and top Palestinian Authority officials are considering the drastic move, which would involve canceling the 1993 Oslo Accords and announcing that the Palestinian Authority is a government under occupation, without full sovereignty, which would technically move full responsibility for the Palestinians in the West Bank to Israel. PLO Executive Committee member Hannah Amira said that there were scenarios that could lead to the disbandment of the Palestinian Authority. The future of the Palestinian Authority has become unclear because when it was established, it was meant as a temporary stage leading to the establishment of a Palestinian state, Amira said. Thus, if the Palestinian Authority doesn't lead to statehood, things should be reviewed. Israel Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman slammed the Palestinians for threatening to dismantle the Palestinian Authority. "You can't show up every day with new threats. This is not how you run negotiations," he said. As a result, Israel will not interfere should the Palestinians choose to dismantle the Palestinian Authority. "It's their business. We don't intend to get involved in either direction," Lieberman said. "They're grown-ups, and whatever they decide, we're ready for every scenario. We're also ready for negotiations. We're willing to negotiate in Jerusalem, in Ramallah, New York, London, or Vienna, but we need readiness from the other party. It's not possible to come with new threats every day. That's not how you negotiate. Therefore, we're open to every development, to any options, and much depends on the other side." The leader of the political party Jewish Home, Naftali Bennett, said that Israel should let Abbas dismantle the Palestinian Authority. Abbas encourages terror against Israel as head of the Palestinian Authority and then threatens that he'll quit his job, said Bennett. But the people of Israel do not negotiate with a barrel of a gun pointed at their head. In response, the United States warned the Palestinian leadership not to proceed with a proposal to dismantle the Palestinian Authority or risk damaging their relationship with the United States. "Those kinds of extreme measures would have grave implications," said State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki. Psaki said the United States was aware of the reports, but that dissolving the Palestinian Authority is not in the interest of the Palestinians. The State Department spokeswoman explained that a great effort has been made in the last few years to build Palestinian institutions with U.S. financial aid, but that Abbas's proposal would have implications on our relationship and U.S. assistance. However, rather than dismantling the Palestinian Authority, the sect of Mahmoud Abbas, Fatah, announced that they have reached a historic agreement to end their differences with Hamas, which is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood and who controls the Gaza Strip. And together, they plan to form a new Palestinian unity government. The agreement calls for the establishment of a Palestinian unity government within 5 weeks. 6 months later, the Palestinians would hold presidential and parliamentary elections. The agreement also calls for activating and developing the PLO so as to allow Hamas and other Palestinian groups to join the organization's institutions. In addition, the accord calls for reviving the Palestinian Legislative Council, which has been paralyzed since Hamas drove the Palestinian Authority out of the Gaza Strip in 2007. Similar reconciliation agreements were reached in principle in the past, but they were never implemented. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh praised the agreement, saying, "National reconciliation, ending the division, and mending the rift has become a national responsibility. The deal," Haniyeh said, "comes at a time of an assault on the Palestinian cause, assault on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and a time when the entirety of Jerusalem is being painted Jewish. Today we can say that we agreed about all what we have discussed," said senior Fatah official Hassan al-Ahmed, adding that we will forget what happened in the past. The result of the efforts that we have made is clear today, as we agreed on all the points that we have discussed. A Palestinian official said that there has been an agreement in principle on forming a government of experts, a term for a cabinet staffed by technocrats rather than politicians. In making the agreement, Hamas said that they would not recognize Israel, although they indicated that they would not obstruct negotiations between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. Sami Abu Zuri, a spokesman for the Hamas movement, said, "We acknowledge that Abbas's recognition of the occupation is his traditional position, nothing new. The Hamas movement position is unwavering in not recognizing the occupation in any form. In any event, negotiations are the task of the PLO. The government has no part in them." Abu Zuri said, "The question of recognition is non-debatable as long as Israel occupies our land." He asserted that the PLO was in charge of negotiations in Palestinian foreign policy, adding that Hamas is not responsible for the PLO relations with Israel. In response, the Israeli Security Cabinet decided to suspend peace talks with the Palestinians. According to a statement put out by the Prime Minister's office, the Cabinet also decided to take unspecified steps against unilateral moves by the Palestinians. The decision was unanimous. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that instead of choosing peace, Mahmoud Abbas formed an alliance with the murderous terrorist organization that calls for Israel's destruction. Mahmoud Abbas formed an alliance with an organization whose covenant calls for Muslims to wage jihad against Jews. Netanyahu said that Hamas has fired more than 10,000 missiles and rockets on Israel and has never stopped for a minute in its terror actions against Israel. Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Erekat said that Hamas is not a terror organization and never will be. Erekat has long been in favor of the unification agreement between Fatah and Hamas. Hamas is a political faction. The highest form of terrorism is the Israeli occupation, he said. Furthermore, Erekat said that Hamas is not required to recognize Israel since there are parties in Israel which don't recognize the state of Palestine. Has Netanyahu asked the Jewish Home Party to recognize the state of Palestine? Erekat asked. Has Netanyahu himself recognized the state of Palestine? Yair Lapid, the head of the political party Yesh Atid, has not recognized the state of Palestine either, he said. Thus, Hamas is not required to recognize Israel. Erekat said that the PLO was responsible for negotiations with Israel. Israel needs to understand that authority over negotiations belongs to the PLO. And all Palestinian governments so far, including the one of Hamas's Ismail Haniyeh, have agreed that the authority over negotiations belongs to the PLO and to the government. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu condemned Hamas as Holocaust deniers who still seek the destruction of the Jewish state. Abbas cannot embrace Hamas and say he wants peace with Israel, Netanyahu said. He said that Abbas's statement was an appeal to American and world public opinion in an effort to smooth over the fact that he made a terrible step away from peace. He said Abbas should tear up that pact with Hamas and go back to the negotiations. He said Israel will never negotiate with a government backed by Hamas as long as he is prime minister. You can say nice things or even significant things about the Holocaust, but you can't embrace those who deny the Holocaust, he said. Mahmoud Abbas could have chosen peace with Israel instead of peace with the murderous terror organization. Israel chief negotiator Tzipi Livni said that Israel has no choice but to suspend talks with the Palestinian Authority after the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas agreed to a unity pact with Hamas. As a result, Israel decided to suspend peace negotiations with the Palestinians. Israel chief negotiator Tzipi Livni said, "First of all, the decision to suspend the talks is a correct decision. It may be that for Mahmoud Abbas, Hamas is a political organization," she said. "For Israel and for the entire world, it is a designated terror organization that does not recognize Israel's existence and acts against civilians through terror activities. Israel cannot act like all is business as usual when it is not," she said, given the new alliance announced between Abbas's Fatah faction and Hamas. But Livni stressed that we didn't close the door on an eventual resumption of talks. As long as the Palestinians are here, and as long as the state of Israel is a state of conflict with them, I will act to open the doors. The doors did not close today, in order, if possible, to conduct negotiations. And I hope we can return to the negotiations, and the moment it happens, I will be in the government to manage it, she said. Livni emphasized that the economic sanctions Israel is set to impose were not aimed at causing the collapse of the Palestinian Authority. It is a temporary decision, she added, noting that the government had not announced new settlement building plans as it had when taking punitive action against the Palestinian Authority in the past. She said Abbas has refused to go along with a U.S. drafted agreement last month that would have resolved a crisis over Palestinian prisoner releases and seen talks extended until the end of 2014. Similarly, 2 days ago, when we thought we could get the talks going again, Abbas failed to take advantage of the opportunity and instead signed a unity pact with Hamas. To my sorrow, Abbas has taken a series of bad decisions at sensitive moments and avoided the right decisions. That's why the U.S. is also so dismayed at him, she said. I shall not conduct negotiations, direct or indirect, with Hamas, Livni said. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, for his part, claimed the deal did not contradict the talks. There is no incompatibility between reconciliation and negotiations, especially as we are committed to a just peace based on a two-state solution in accordance with resolutions of international law, Abbas said in an official statement distributed by his office. In the interest of the Palestinian people, it is necessary to preserve the unity of land and people, Abbas said, claiming it helped to strengthen the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. This approach, supported on the Arab and international levels, strengthened the capacity of Palestinian negotiators to achieve the two-state solution. Abbas said he was still ready to extend stalled peace talks with Israel beyond the April 29th deadline, but stressed he would never recognize Israel as a Jewish state. Abbas conditioned the extension of talks on the release of the final 30 Palestinian prisoners, a freeze on Jewish settlement construction, and Israel committing to discuss the borders of a future Palestinian state. How can we restart the talks? There's no timetable for us restarting the talks, but the 30 prisoners need to be released, Abbas said. On the table, we will present our map. For 3 months, we'll discuss our map. In that period, until the map is agreed upon, all settlement activity must cease completely. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas held a meeting of the Central Committee of his Fatah movement. They decided that direct peace talks with Israel could only be extended if the clear aim is to establish an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. They added that peace talks should guarantee the right of return to the Palestinian refugees based upon UN Resolution 194 and should also be based on the Arab Peace Initiative. Until we do it again, Shalom in Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.